Greetings sailors and welcome to my look at the USS None More Black, or the USS It Goes Up to 11, or the USS Dobley because it's got plenty of Dobley, yes. It's all on my system now, I promise. So, this is the Black. It is the upcoming ranked season reward ship. You'll need, I think, 5 ranked season wins to get this. And in keeping with the tradition started by the Flint, it's a bit overpowered. Now, the version we have for preview is definitely overpowered, but I've hung on to do a video until I knew what, if any, changes they were going to make to it. And they are. They're going to basically nerf both the range and duration of the radar. So with the preview version, it was 9.45 kilometers and 35 seconds duration, and I think that's the same as the Baltimore. I don't have Baltimore, so I can't check directly, but it's going to drop to 20 seconds duration and 7.5 kilometers. And I know the 7.5 kilometers is around about what the Indianapolis and the Atlanta have, so it's dropping in its range and its duration, but it's still radar, so that's still a little bit problematic, I think, to be honest. Just the fact that it's a destroyer with radar, there's not really any getting away from that. Now, obviously, this is a top hull Fletcher, apart from the radar consumable, which sits in the same slot as the defensive AA and the speed boost, whereas well, it's the same with the Fletcher. It's defensive AA and speed booster in the same slot, and then this has also got radar in that slot, and you're probably going to be using the radar if you happen to get a hold of one of these things. There's 2 other differences. The biggest one by far is the torpedoes, and there's also a slight reduction in AA power compared to the Fletcher. It's got a little bit less DPS, but the range is basically the same. So it's slightly weaker, but it's still pretty good for a tier 9 destroyer. So about those torpedoes, you've got the same 2 quintuple launchers that the Fletcher has, but, well, in a lot of regards, they're better. You've got 2.5k more damage, just about, 21,600 in total. You've got a 13.7 kilometer range. You've got a faster reload. You've got a minute and a half, just about, 1 minute 36. And they have a detection range of under a kilometer. It's 900 meters, and the next best is the Udaloy's 1.2 kilometers. But there is a bit of a downside in that they only travel at 43 knots. Arun has termed these sea mines, and I think that is entirely apt because, yeah, you deploy them, and then a minute and a half later, oh look, I got some torpedo hits. And the only thing I've had the only experience I've had that's similar to that was playing the stock Shimikaze with the 20 kilometer torps, where you'd fire them off, and a minute and a half later it'd be like, oh yeah, I got a torpedo hit on something. Because by that point, you know, you've practically forgotten that you fired torpedoes to begin with. So they don't quite have that range, they're not quite that bad, but 43 knots is pretty slow, and you will reload by the time they're actually getting to the edge of that 13.7 kilometer range. Now you can of course sacrifice some of that range for a couple more knots speed. It'll go down to, oh, I don't even know, 10 point something probably, 11 point something kilometers to get up to 48 knots. Not sure that'll especially make them any better, but you know, you could take a torpedo acceleration captain on this ship, definitely. But yes, despite the slowness, they are actually surprisingly effective. And I quite honestly, having played this, think that just to make something that was a bit interesting and different from the Fletcher, they could have not bothered with radar at all. They could have just had it with those more powerful torpedoes, which are surprisingly effective. But no, what you do have is those surprisingly effective torpedoes and radar. Now, Wargaming is of course counting on the fact that this is going to be a rare ship. The fact that, like the Flint, you've got to put a lot of time into getting it. And if this were just a premium that you could go out and buy, or if it were like the Missouri where you could get free XP and put it towards getting this, or even if it was some kind of really complicated mission or something, you'd see a lot more of these, and they'd be a problem. I think even with the shorter range radar, they'd be a problem. So the fact that they're just counting on it being a rare ship doesn't speak volumes as to its actual balance, really, does it? So yeah, I think even with the shorter range radar, just the fact that it has radar is kind of OP on a destroyer. Now, there is one very last thing to note about this. I mean, the black itself is not a particularly notable ship. I'm pretty sure the reason they chose it is because of that pennant number, 666. And it has been noted that the model is actually wrong. It's basically a straight copy of the existing Fletcher. And because this was a later model Fletcher class ship, it should in fact have a square bridge rather than a rounded one. Now, Wargaming knows about this. It will undoubtedly be fixed at some point in the far future, but it's probably a relatively low priority. But otherwise, yeah, apart from those two changes, it's a Fletcher. And that was something of a challenge for me because I haven't played the Fletcher. And I haven't played a huge amount of US destroyers generally. So if you are watching this and thinking, my god, his shooting sucks, well, it's got those suborbital US destroyer shells, and I'm just not used to playing with those. So anything other than close ranges, yeah, my shooting probably really does suck. Now, this particular game, I mean, bear in mind, just it's not only that I haven't played the Fletcher, but I'm not that used to playing with radar generally. I've only got a couple of ships with radar, and most of those are premiums. The Belfast, the Indianapolis, and the Atlanta. Now, I do now also have the New Orleans and the Chapayev, or the Chapayev's over on the NA server, and honestly, I found the Chapayev more comfortable to play than the New Orleans, but just overall, it's still, like, radar is something I have to get my head around, like, oh yeah, I have radar that I could use in this situation. So if I'm not using it effectively, well, it's because I'm not particularly used to using it. And using it on a destroyer is certainly a different experience than using it on a cruiser. And the temptation is to get closer to you know, pop out smoke and use the radar to see out, which of course is a possibility with the Belfast, for instance. But, well, you'll see that I don't always do it that well, and there are other ships around with things like Hydro and their own radar. I got caught out by radar earlier on in this replay with the Missouri, who honestly wasn't playing very well. They were just kind of spamming the radar at weird times. I mean, the first use of the radar was fine, but then the second use of the radar was like, I don't know why you're using that right now. But, yeah, there's also things around with Hydro on the enemy team, and particularly German Hydro, so those I have to be wary about. Now, this team, I mean, we've had a cap superiority for quite a long time in this team, and it does show in the points. But, well, the enemy team just all bunched up behind the C cap, and our team seemed completely unable to deal with it. Now, both these games, I'll say, are actually me playing solo, and I have played this in a division, and that's kind of relevant to the games that you'll see here, and sort of the games I'm not showing you as well, because this is going to be my best damage game that I managed, just overall, solo or in a division. And when you're playing solo, I think you can probably, even despite those slow torpedoes, manage to do quite a decent amount of damage, and I'm actually going to get some, like, that spread that I put out there that are now, you know, like a minute plus later getting towards the edge of their range, and I got 3 hits out of that spread of 10, so that's not too bad at all. But when I was playing in a division, that was a rather different experience. I think, as with the Flint, division play versus solo play presents even rather a different aspect of the ship. And when I was playing in a division with people, I found I was doing far less damage. But because I was able to coordinate with 1 or 2 other people, the capabilities of the black, just the ability to smoke people up and then radar, it's very powerful, exceptionally powerful. And it's like somebody, sometimes you see divisions of these ships, and a good example is a recent game I had on NA where it was a Perth division, and they'd managed to get top tier, and they were just using their smoke extremely effectively, and they were just smoking each other over and over. And it's kind of like that with this ship. If you get in with other destroyers, if you maybe got in with a cruiser, or it might be a little less effective with a battleship. I mean, it's still US destroyer smoke you've got going on here. But to get the best capability out of it, you want to make use of its speed, and so other cruisers or destroyers are going to be best, basically. This Hindenburg, by the way, I'm going to meet my doom here. We had a really healthy point lead, but there was so much time left on the clock that they would have, even if I'd run away to the corner and tried to live, they would have capped and overtaken us on points in the 5+ minutes that they've got left. And so, yeah, that one turned out to be a bit of a defeat, unfortunately. But as I was saying, yes, in a platoon, a division rather, it's a seriously powerful ship, and that's like just that it's like the Belfast. It's that toolbox that it's got. Just having that radar available in a destroyer, even 7.5 kilometers, you can still comfortably stealth radar people. And given the like, for standard battles it's maybe not so important, but given the importance of contesting caps in domination mode, having that package of stealth and radar together, I just think, I don't know, I think radar in a destroyer package is just, it's not a good idea. And I hope Wargaming, like, they're unlikely to take away the radar from the black at this point, but I hope Wargaming look at this and look at how it does and think, okay, we're never doing that again, because it's too good. It's just too good. Radar on a destroyer. It really is. Of course, it's only ultimately as good as the person using it, and in this game it is going to be a win, in contrast to the last one where I had like 130k damage. Not quite so much damage in this one, but you'll get to see me flailing around a bit, which is an unusual sight, I know. So, this time it's, I want to say Trap. I can't remember the name of this map now. I think it is. I don't know, the maps in warships seem to just have such generic names, and I can never hold them in my head what they're called. But anyway, it's this map. Again, solo, tier 10 game. And there's some ships on the enemy team to be worried about, but well, nothing that worrisome. I think they've got some ships with good hydro, and I can't remember offhand. I wasn't glancing at the team list when it was loading in, so I'm not sure if they have any good radar ships, but I should be relatively safe here. Now, I know something's come in the cap with me. This one was on stream, by the way. I don't think I highlighted it or anything, but you might recognize it if you were one of the few people that were watching. Yeah, there was somebody in the cap at this point, and I was on the stream sitting here for about 2 minutes thinking, surely, you know, I'll get bored before they get bored. But what ended up happening was that I realized, oh yeah, they're firing from behind the island, and I thought, okay, rather than just sitting here doing nothing, I can either go out and concede the cap, or I can try and contest. Now, the problem with contesting is I don't have a lot of backup. This is one of the reasons why I've been hanging out here at the edge of the cap circle and been slightly unwilling to go toe-to-toe with what I'm convinced must be an enemy American destroyer with that rate of fire, those shell arcs. So chances are this might go horribly, embarrassingly wrong. And bear in mind, this was all live on stream. But I decided I've got to try it anyway. And hey, I've got this toolbox available, right? Except I'm going to use it all wrong. This is going to be one of those times when it's like, don't do what I do, kids. Do what I say, because, you know, I clearly know what I'm talking about better after the fact than I do actually in game. So I know he's behind the island. There's no point just pinging off the radar. I mean, that's why I'd not used it before this point, because even if he was somewhere where my allies could shoot, there's no allies to shoot him. There was basically one Bismarck who's backed all the way off. So my plan is, and it's not very good, get close to the rock, pop smoke, use radar. And popping smoke and using radar, okay, as a combination, that can be pretty useful. I've used that very effectively at various points. But in this case, it's completely useless because the smoke, okay, he knows exactly where I am. I pop the radar, he gets spotted, but he's behind the island. So there's not really anything I can do, and he's actually in a position where he can go forwards. He's not reversing. So my plan to get the jump on this guy has just face planted, and it's just been almost a waste of a radar. Now, not totally a waste, because at the edge of the range this gearing gets picked up, and of course with the ship when it's in its release state, I wouldn't have the range to pick up this gearing, so it would have been a complete waste. But I do at least get 1 or 2 hits in that guy, so that's, you know, not a total waste of time, but it almost is. So I figure, okay, I'm now blind, and rather than stick around in this smoke and invite the Fletcher to come round and just put a load of torpedoes through it, I decide to bail out and get moving again. And then I figured, well, maybe I should go up and help the ships in the north. They don't have a lot of ships there. I know the gearing's wounded, that Kurfürst is wounded, there's a Tirpitz, and really not a lot else. But something is about to happen. Now, it's US smoke. US smoke has quite a long duration. This enemy Fletcher has clearly decided to make use of that smoke, as I'm about to find out. Oh, hello! There you are! Okay, this suddenly got very, very awkward. So this is the point where I'm panicking and going, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. And I almost certainly could have dodged that first spread, but I took it on the nose and survived. And then somehow, God knows how, I managed to wiggle through the second spread and then take him out. Sheer panic, sheer adrenaline, but I'm alive and he isn't. Now, I could have come out of that with way more health than I did. And the path that led me up to that moment was just one of derpitude. But I'm now able to cap at least. So, as Jingles likes to say, if it's stupid and it works, well, my addendum to that is always, well, it's still stupid, but you got kind of lucky. And in this case, I did get kind of lucky. Because that really, that was just like pure kind of panic, really. It was just me going, oh god, I don't want to die, and somehow getting away with it. So I've moved down towards A, where our team's having some serious trouble. I mean, this is where a lot of our team ended up coming down towards, and they've been doing some damage, and they did actually manage to cap A, but the enemy team's causing them some serious trouble. So I put out one spread on the Yamato, and my thought here was, if I can get even just one hit and get a flooding, and then get another torpedo into this guy, which is risky, because obviously the first spread he's going to know I'm here, but on the other hand he has limited options for manoeuvring because he's against that island, so he could have really killed his speed there and avoided these, or he could have turned a bit west and avoided these. But fortunately for me, this is one of those battleship drivers that doesn't really like to use their A and D keys too much, so he is flooding, he's trying to repair against it, but oh well, okay. I may have gotten more damage out of that guy, but never mind. And then this happens. Yeah. Remember how I was saying sometimes you just get those random torpedo hits? In this case, one of those random torpedo hits took out an enemy Benson. So those slow torpedoes, surprisingly effective. Now I skipped on a little bit ahead here. The state I'm in right now, having not a lot of health, means I'm a little reluctant to go up against the Yugumo, especially now when there's a Minotaur in that smoke, and the Tirpitz is fairly close as well. So my idea is make a drop on the Tirpitz and hope that he holds his course, and trying to drop into that that middle cap point is actually a little bit tricky with all the little islands in the way. And then I figured maybe I'd try and get close enough to use radar against the Minotaur smoke, but as it turns out, it doesn't really kind of work out that way, because with the Yugumo, there. It's a bit tricky to go in that direction. I could do it and potentially stealth, but I mean, it now looks like the Tirpitz is coming in this direction. So instead I opt to put the island between me and the Gumo, so I'm not going to get any random torp spreads from him, and just smoke and fire, which is a fairly standard US destroyer move. And because this guy is quite close, my shooting sucks less than normal. I'm not having to give like off-the-screen amounts of lead, at which point I start to struggle badly, because I tend to find that if I can't zoom in to the maximum extent, then I find it a lot harder to place my shots and to observe the fall of shot as well. So this guy obviously has torpedoes, it's a Tirpitz, and he's within dropping range, so I'm just going to have to take a guess as to when he drops, because he's going to drop into this smoke. Because one of the disadvantages, one of the few disadvantages of radar is that it's surface only. Unlike hydro, you don't get to see incoming torpedoes, but of course the downside of hydro is it's generally a lot shorter range. So he's almost certainly made the drop at this point, and it's a good time to get out of this this smoke. And I can of course still keep this smoke between me and him and remain unspotted, because there's no aircraft in the air or anything like that, so I'm not going to get air spotted. So if I'm lucky, I can get another fire going or something, but I am not, so never mind. And now I was thinking at this point, okay, now I'll finally go and radar that smoke and the Minotaur. But as it turns out, the Minotaur isn't even in the smoke. He's either dropped it as a decoy, or he dropped it, used it briefly, and then decided to move off. So yeah, so much for that plan. And I've got about a minute and a bit before I can use my own smoke as well. Now, veteran players of the Fletcher will possibly know that if you have the concealment module and concealment expert on the captain, you've got quite a comfortable stealth firing range. Now, to use that stealth firing range, you have to fire at rather long ranges, which means that suborbital shell trajectory makes life a lot more awkward. But because I'm not used to playing it, it's something I wasn't doing a lot was stealth firing, probably much to the relief of my foes. So I do it a bit in this particular match, and I did do it from time to time. And there's not even really an excuse these days, because there's a little toggle on the minimap which lets you turn on a radius circle for your detection radius after you've fired. And you can look at that, and you can look at the gap between that and your maximum firing range and figure out what your safe stealth firing range is. You don't have to sit down with a calculator anymore. You might don't even really need a calculator, to be honest. It's just your firing range minus your detection range plus the stealth debuff. It's not a particularly difficult sum to do. But these days, the client, the minimap, it tells you. So there's not really an excuse for those ships where you know it, you can do it. So yeah, I didn't really have an excuse for not remembering that I could stealth fire a lot of the time. It's just, I think I was so in the mode of, okay, I'm going to smoke and I'm going to use radar and I'm going to get closer, that the thought of sailing around at longer ranges and just stealth firing didn't really occur to me that often. Now it is a pretty good stealth fire range as well, because I can stealth fire down to about 9.9 kilometers, something like that, at which point I do get spotted. So I was maybe being a little overly cautious in the dying seconds of this battle, but I quite wanted to live after my amazing skilled torpedo beats earlier. Totally skilled, not just panic and luck at all. So the Tirpitz does go down, but it's not enough points to tick us over to a victory immediately. So rather than just watch the last 10 minutes where nothing, 10 minutes, what? The 10 seconds where nothing happens, we'll skip straight to the score screen and see that although it was less damage, it was still not a bad result, considering I'm basically a noob in the Fletcher. Now, of course, this is a premium. The Flint was a premium. This is a premium. So second tier 9 premium in the game. It does make good credits. And as I noted earlier, I felt like I did better damage-wise and therefore reward-wise when I was playing solo. Although some of the the games where I was playing in a division and it was low damage, I think I had 1 or 2 games where I was like 20k damage and I still managed to top out the team list, and it was probably from spotting people through smoke, because that's for radar, for spotting in warships. If there's literally no other way your allies can see them, if you're spotting them in smoke with radar, then that's all you're spotting, basically. So it doesn't necessarily mean a bad XP result, but you won't get as many credits because you're not doing as much damage, basically. But still, yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, Wargaming's thought process is doing all these ranked games is going to be an incredible grind for most people. You know, you can do it through just sheer blind persistence, and so they want to make something at the end of it that feels like a worthwhile reward. And it is a pretty good reward, but as a ship, I still kind of think it's a bit overpowered. And just the rarity value of it isn't maybe going to take away from that. You'll still get that sinking feeling if you happen to see one on the enemy team. So, yeah, overall, the Black is a ship that doesn't necessarily need to be in the game. And that's my take on it. And even with it in the game, they still could have made an interesting variant of the Fletcher just based on the torpedoes. Maybe they could have given it better AA or something, I don't know. But as it is with the radar, that's just so powerful, especially in the setting of a division. So hopefully you have found this video interesting, useful. If you have, you can hit the like button. You can leave any comments below. You can sub to my channel if you haven't already. And as always, stay tuned for more.